PNG not prepared for second Olympic qualifier. Teachers resume duties for the 2016 academic year. And Lae Fire Commander highlights failures of building owners.
This is National EMTV News with Meriba Tulo.
Good evening and thank you for joining us for Monday's news. The Papua New Guinea national women's soccer team has bowed out of the Olympic qualifiers against New Zealand under dubious circumstances. PNG lost 7-1 to New Zealand in the first qualifier in Lae on Saturday. However, the team could not travel to New Zealand today for the second qualifier due to visa issues. Sports Minister Justin Chichenko said it was unfortunate but should have been prevented. He added that the PNG Football Association is working around the clock with the OFC to make alternative arrangements for the qualifier to go ahead. Jeremy Moggy reports.
After losing 7-1 to New Zealand on Saturday, the women were hopeful of making a comeback in the second qualifier. The match, scheduled to be played in New Zealand tomorrow. However, the chances of representing Oceania in Rio is now in tatters. There's supposed to be another shot at the Olympic qualifiers, but sadly, that match will not eventuate. It all began yesterday when the team flew out of Lae after the first leg. They were to assemble in Port Moresby for the departure to New Zealand today. However, after arriving in Jackson's airport, it took another 7 hours of waiting before they checked into their hotel. Today they woke up to the news that all is lost, not on the field but due to administrative failures. Their visas were not processed in time and therefore the team could not travel and would have to be disbanded. There were, however, other indications of poor treatment of the national team prior to the first qualifying match on Saturday.
Yeah, I think from an organisational point of view, we would have loved to have had the game here in Port Moresby. It's a balancing act between operations and also the team wanting to have an advantage and make New Zealand travel that little bit extra up into Lae. But no, I think from a tournament perspective, selfishly, we want as much football in Port Moresby as possible.
Of course, we could have done a better job if we had a long preparation, and we had international friendly similar to this one. However, I'm very impressed with my girls. We need this kind of matches so that we're not looking at winning but improving and closing the gaps.
Diane Taisian, who took up management duties of the team during the Pacific Games, also expressed her disappointment.
This would have definitely put us on the world map, and we were very well prepared for it until after the Pacific Games. So someone needs to answer to it. Someone needs to explain, because I've got the ladies here not knowing why they can't play. And to be sent home, come all this way and be sent home, for what?
After arriving in Port Moresby, players based out of the city were made to travel back to their respective provinces today. In a statement made by the Minister for Tourism and Sport, Honorable Justin Chichenko, he said that this is not the first time that we've had issues with travel for teams or individuals, and that things can be done better for the future development and growth of sport in the country, and especially for an event as crucial as the Olympic qualifiers. Jeremy Moggy, National EMTV News.
Teachers nationwide have resumed for the 2016 academic year, starting today. The resumption was slow, but teachers are ready to start classes next Monday. However, some schools have missed out on fourth quarter tuition fee-free funding from last year, and funding for the first term this year is yet to reach their accounts. Quinton Alomp reports.
Only 9 teachers out of the 14 positions available at Ruatoka Primary School in Kwikila, Central Province, turned up for work today. Deputy Head Teacher Silin Kekerupa says they are expecting others during the week.
By next week, we should have all the teachers that were posted here because of changes with postings. Some teachers are not really sure where they're supposed to go. Some are still maybe traveling in from homes or holiday.
When teachers nationwide resume today in preparation for the 2016 academic year for students, which will start next Monday, the management of Ruatoka Primary School are still waiting for the tuition fee-free money to be paid into the school account. TFF funds for the fourth term last year were not paid, and also funds for the first term this year have yet to reach the school account.
We didn't receive any subsidy money yet for the commencement, and for last year fourth quarter, we didn't receive yet. So that's still outstanding form.
The delay of TFF payment has affected planning of the academic year. The school uses funds meant for maintenance of classrooms and teachers' houses to buy stationeries for the students. With the dry season continuing, teachers are using the only tank for cooking and drinking.
Water at the moment is a problem. We only have one tap there, over there one teacher. And that's where all the teachers around here, we get water.
Calls have been made for the national government to release TFF funds on time and local MPs to use the additional money of 5 million kina on top of the 10 million kina DSIP funds to improve infrastructure in schools. Quinten Alom, National EMTV News.
Some parents in Lae have spoken out on the state of the government's free education policy this year. Preparations for the new academic year have attracted comments from parents of students attending primary, secondary and high schools. Most parents EMTV spoke to questioned why the government kept charging project fees alongside its tuition fee-free funds.
This queue in front of the BSP Bank in Lae, formed as early as 7 this morning, consists of parents preparing to make school fee deposits. Most of these parents have at least 2 children attending primary or secondary schools this year. And these schools have been charging project fees since the introduction of the tuition fee-free funds 4 years ago.
Project fee 400 kina.
Following the government's announcement last week on schools to charge project fees this year, some parents are still confused but have chosen to do deposits anyway to secure spaces for their children.
Whether there's a project fee will pay monogat. That's why I put him this monitor solo. Safeguard him or picking him.
Some parents have also questioned the whole purpose of the government's free education policy when schools are still charging them fees.
Also, time government talk free education, me go ahead can buy more so narapla school also milky more same embedded lo me.
Right, me cutting government ba pay all this law one but so the money me parents lo pay.
In Lae, schools are now collecting fees from parents but are still unsure whether their share of the 150 million kina TFF will arrive on time. Some secondary schools are asking parents for 400 kina project fees, while primary school parents are expected to pay 200 kina. Parents who have relied on the free education policy are questioning why the government is supporting schools to charge fees again. Colin Barilai, National EMTV News, Lae.
Foreign Affairs Minister Rimbing Pato has been forced to defend the concept and establishment of the Manus Asylum Seekers Processing Center. This was done through a statement released today, in which Pato also gave an update on the number of asylum seekers already granted refugee status in PNG.
So far, 361 asylum seekers have been granted refugee status in PNG, and over 600 more are being processed by the Immigration and Citizenship Service Authority. While the statement is not clear on where exactly the refugees will be settled, the government will support them in language and cultural orientation training and with temporary accommodation. These are being supported by the Australian government. For West Papuan refugees, the minister said the authority is reviewing over 1,000 claims by West Papuans in East Arwin, Kiunga and Port Moresby. That is, apart from the West Papuan refugees already being granted citizenships. Since the idea of the processing center was brought to light, along with supporters, there have been a lot of criticisms both in the country and overseas. Minister Pato said PNG's role in processing asylum seekers comes under its obligation to the 1951 Convention of the Status of Refugees. Sarah Aupong, National EMTV News.
On the eve of Australia Day, Prime Minister Peter O'Neill has joined other world nations in extending his best wishes to the people of Australia as they celebrate their National Day. Prime Minister O'Neill said Papua New Guinea-Australia relations are in the best shape now than at any time in the 40 years of the relationship. He says that relationship with Australia continues to mature and was constantly evolving and diversifying in a way that was mutually beneficial to the people of both nations. Prime Minister O'Neill extended his wishes to all Australians and especially those living in Papua New Guinea as they prepare to celebrate their National Day. You're watching National EMTV News. We'll be back with more stories after these messages. Welcome back to National EMTV News. Lae Fire Station Commander Bal Kenna has highlighted that several building owners in Lae have failed repeatedly to install fire extinguishers and other safety equipment, even after recommendations by fire inspectors. The buildings have Papua New Guinean and foreign owners and continue to stay outside of compliance perimeters. In Lae alone, there have been more than 20 major fires since the year 2012.
The ability of the Papua New Guinea Fire Service to put out major fires has been an issue debated both by the public and within government circles. Since 2012, several major fires have destroyed buildings affecting businesses. Today, Lae's Fire Station Commander said businesses need to take some responsibility for safety.
Most of these buildings occupied by Chinese, non-nil fire extinguishers, even those occupied by the nationals as well. Although we tried to do what we could do to educate them, but they failed to implement our recommendations.
Despite advice by fire inspectors, many building owners still refuse to comply. Lae Fire Service Superintendent Bal Kenna says fire safety is a shared responsibility and landlords must take ownership of their properties.
That they must provide fire extinguisher in their hotel, motel, guest house, or in their living room.
Lae has only one fire station and a fire truck with 27 personnel. Its current capacity is unable to cover the growing city of more than 200,000. The service is still waiting for the government to improve Lae's fire station as well as other services. Lae needs at least 2 more fire stations that must be well equipped with trained personnel. Without adequate resources and a lack of compliances by businesses, there will continue to be fires that are difficult to control. Mata Luis, National EMTV News, Lae.
Workers at the Ramu Nickel project in Madang say they will continue their strike after the company management failed to meet the 11-point petition presented to them. As of yesterday, the workers gave the company 2 choices. The first, for the company to draft an MOA for the workers to sign before they can return to work, or to follow through with the company's decision last Friday to close down the company and terminate all national workers as well as repatriating all Chinese employees. All operations have stopped and all national employees have stepped down from their duties. Members of the NAS Fund Contributors Savings and Loan Society, or NCSL, will now receive monthly interest on their saving accounts starting this month. NCSL announced today that the society will be now paying accrued monthly interest to its more than 76,000 members. Contributors with NCSL will now be earning monthly interest of 0.1% on the members' total savings balance.
NES Fund Contributors Savings and Loan Society, or NCSL, announced today that its 76,000 plus members will now be earning 0.1% on their total savings balance. This means contributors will earn 1.2% per annum in interim payment of interest. Additional interest will be paid to members on top of this interim payment after audits of NCSL's financial statements at the end of the year. NCSL's General Manager Vari Lahui said this is a change from the previous years where NCSL paid annual interest to its members after the auditing of its year-end financial statements. He said the monthly interest payments means that members who exit the society before the audit do not miss out on interest payments on their savings. Mr. Lahui said NCSL will regularly review the monthly interest rate and make changes where necessary. This is to ensure that members get the best possible return on their savings. The society has paid an average of 5.5% in annual interest to members over the past 5 years and is confident of maintaining this trend. Deli Waigeno, National EMTV News.
And now a look at the finance news. The kina closed unchanged at $0.3315 in the interbank market. At Bank South Pacific, your kina was buying $0.3240 $0.4591 Australian dollars, $0.2968 euro, and 38.18 Japanese yen. Looking at commodity prices at New York close, coffee and cocoa closed higher, while gold and copper closed the day lower. Palm oil, crude oil, and copper closed the day higher. And on the stock markets, the Dow Jones closed at 32 points lower, the ASX closed at 56 points lower, and the All Ordinaries closed 55 points higher. Yeah, with National EMTV News, when we come back, we take a look at some stories making headlines overseas. Welcome back to National EMTV News. While Port Moresby is undergoing water rationing, other areas in the city have no access to water. Residents of Morata 1 in the nation's capital have been using water from the sewage treatment plant for their daily needs. Edarano says while it has plans to carry out a pilot project study, Morata has expanded uncontrollably over the years, coupled with the increasing demand for illegal activities.
The residents of Morata 1, Mosquito Street and Force City have been using the sewage pond from the Morata sewage treatment plant as a water source for bathing and washing their clothes. While this poses as a major health threat to residents, they say this is the only water source available in the area that they can use.
Mosquito Street na Force City. Mi place tabia no katwara. Mi plan by go logone mabo no katablo go. Mi plan stablo des la ligri guaraya. Des la ligri guaraya mi sebi mi plan mi place tabo many years.
Mi plan was a plate cap gena. Mi place serim kagena. Kaiga igo kamo semna. Iluko semba mi plan okena by sick na indai.
Since there is no clean water, residents say they have to buy clean water at Morata 2 and other areas closer to them that receive clean water supply.
Mi plasta 1 kina jerrycan wara 2 kina mi plasta baim lo lain kisim wara lo Morata 2 o kisim kulim lo Morata 2 ka abrusim fositi kam lo mosquito na mi plasta baim lo 2 kina lo 1 pla kointena na mi plasta go ku kai drin na disla.
Ward Councillor for Morata 1, Jonathan Afuti, says the population of around 5,000 in the area all gather at the sewage-treated pond to use the water. However, Mr. Afuti said he has been speaking with his councils and will meet with the NCD governor this week to address this issue.
Developing this place here, my project proposals. This is kick off here, Morata community, Force City. Still by me by advancing me going to Morata whole area. Now over the whole area lo Morata mole aletimna. Only talks away finish only wait is start. So me like start lo desra kona. Today desra day now Sunday final meeting blom plaro here. Now from here now by me move on to Biano. Lo backside here. After Biano governor's footnote lo Wednesday.
Adarano responded this afternoon, stating that Morata as a whole is on 2 main water supply that is controlled at certain times of the day. Adarano stressed that the increase of population over the years, Adarano cannot supply water throughout the area. Marilyn Diaukatam, National EMTV News.
Turning overseas now, and Thai and Malaysian officials are investigating a mysterious chunk of metal debris found by a fisherman off the southern coast of Thailand. Some officials believe it might be from the missing Malaysian Airlines flight MH370. Others say it doesn't look like part of the plane.
Now there is wiring, and if we follow it all the way around, you can just see how large this piece is. We think it's roughly around 3 meters wide, at least 2.5 meters tall. It's taller at the other end. It's kind of like a conical shape, less wide at the bottom than at the top. And I want to show you these. These are incredibly important. They're barnacles, but these can give a lot of information. How long has this piece been in the water, and potentially where exactly in the ocean does it come from, or has it been to? Now, what else are they looking for? They're looking for numbers. Now, we haven't seen any serial numbers, but there are a number of different numbers on this. 323, let me bring you down here. 307, 308, there are circular pieces, a lot of nuts and bolts, and these are also important. Let me bring you down here and show you these rivets. Now, experts tell me that rivets are used on a Boeing 777, the same aircraft as MH370, but on the inside of the frame, not on the external side of the fuselage. Now, some experts are debating whether this even belongs to any type of aircraft. Many are saying that it could well be from a rocket, but that, of course, is for experts to determine.
More than 1 million refugees have made their way to Germany in just the past year. And in Cologne, hundreds of women were assaulted on New Year's Eve. More than half of the suspects are said to be asylum seekers. CNN spoke to some of the refugees about their fears of a backlash.
Police have described what happened at the Cologne train station on New Year's Eve as a new dimension of crime by a mob of North African men. Germany's federal police use an Arabic term. He says this is a new phenomenon for Germany, and we are very concerned. We know of this phenomenon Tarush Jamia from Egypt, mass sexual assault happening in large crowds, he says. It is not a game. Anybody who commits assaults like this must be arrested and brought to police regardless. Anyone, whether German nationals or refugees. This is exactly what Mustafa Karita, a 48-year-old Syrian refugee, had feared would happen. Some people were waiting for something like this to happen, he tells us, something that puts refugees in a bad light. But we will do our best to prove to others that most refugees are not bad. Mustafa and his family were among the 1 million asylum seekers who came to Germany in the last year. Initially, Germany publicly welcomed refugees. But national polls now show Germans increasingly dissatisfied with Chancellor Merkel's policies. 70% now believe more crime is coming. Nabil Hamdi, himself a Kurdish refugee who's lived in Germany for the last 14 years, introduced us to Mustafa and his family to understand how the New Year's Eve assaults and the backlash will impact refugees. Mustafa's son-in-law believes the assaults were less about culture, more about the disrespect for law and order brought with them. There is no law in places like Syria, he says. Some who came to Germany grew up like this and do not want to know anything in this new place. But refugees must realize that there are laws in Germany and they have to abide by those laws. Everybody has rights here, but also responsibilities, he says. The assaults have galvanized anti-immigration groups. Attacks on refugees and migrants have also increased, but Mustafa's son, Yusuf, is not afraid. No, I'm not afraid. Definitely not, he says. Because the people I met with in the last 4 months I have seen in Germany were good people, full of respect. Small groups of refugees have come to leave messages and lay flowers at the Cologne train station, but even Hamdi, the refugee coordinator, admits it will take time. I'm a very positive person, he says, and I think we have reduced people's prejudices against refugees, but I can understand people who feel, well, if you invite someone to your home, offer to take care of them, and then this person betrays you, well, it's natural to be sad and very disappointed. Time to rebuild trust between residents and refugees who are here to stay.
Ongoing political instability has allowed Islamic militants to get a foothold in Egypt. 9 people were killed in Cairo last week, and the hope for democracy in the center of Egypt's uprising 5 years ago has faded. Amnesty International says Egypt is embroiled in human rights crisis of great proportions.
Arab leaders quaked at the sight of Tahrir. Millions of Egyptians took to the square, a force for change demanding a better life. That was 18 days in 2011. The masses returned to do it again in 2013. Shortly after, the new government cracked down. Police arrested Yusuf during a protest, charged with threatening national security, he says. We're concealing the university student's identity. He's afraid for his safety.
They electrocuted me with 2 wires to the chest and the back. I was screaming in pain. My torturer said the electricity was weak. Plug it into the AC. The shock sent me and 2 guys holding me back a few meters.
Yusuf languished in prison for over a year.
How did you deal with the torture?
I cried hard. I felt extremely weak, impotent, and crushed. I broke a piece of glass and felt that I wanted to end all this. I wanted to die.
CNN can't independently verify Yusuf's story, but Egyptian human rights lawyers say his is not unique.
The use of extreme force, violence, torture violations in prisons, and especially in police stations, it's gone up on the rise.
One report detailed police abuse in 2015. In it, nearly 500 people died in police custody. 700 cases of torture were documented. In the lead up to the anniversary of the revolution, activists tell us the government is cracking down on any perceived threats, including making arrests, as well as raiding cultural centers and private homes.
There is a deliberate attempt to send a message to anyone that would consider protesting that it won't be tolerated this time around.
Egypt's Minister of Interior defended his tactics as legal on state TV.
Questions are being raised now about some practices that violate human rights. Well, they are necessary because of the reality we live in. We are facing a ferocious wave of terrorism that Egypt hasn't witnessed in modern history.
Among the wave of terrorism, ISIS in Egypt has killed over 1,000 people, including hundreds of civilians. But Yusuf sees the government's tactics as counterproductive.
The government gives the terrorist organizations a kiss of life. The youth join these groups as a result of the government's oppression and terror. They don't give the young people a way to vent their anger.
5 years on, for many, the hope of Tahrir has been replaced by despair.
With the Rio Olympics just a few months away, Brazil is announcing new measures to prevent the feared Zika virus from spreading. Authorities will have to keep the virus in check as tens of thousands of visitors begin arriving from around the world.
With concerns growing over the Zika virus and the Olympic Games just 6 months away, officials say they're taking steps to minimize risks. Now, leading up to the Games and during both the Olympic Games and the Paralympic Games, they say they'll be inspecting all of the venues on a daily basis to make sure there isn't any standing water. And that's important because that's the breeding ground for the mosquitoes that transmit the virus. Now, they're also quick to point out that Rio de Janeiro really hasn't been the focal point of the Zika virus or the birth defects that have been linked to it. That's been more in the northeast of the country. And they're also hopeful that with the Games coming in August, that's the winter, the drier, cooler months here in Brazil, that will also help minimize risks. This has been a very serious issue here in Brazil. While the Zika virus cropped up in the first half of last year and really didn't initially set off any alarm bells because it's such a mild virus, a few months later, when doctors noticed that there was a huge spike in birth defects, something called microcephaly, where babies are born with small craniums and developmental issues, often leading to early death, they quickly determined that there was a link between the two. And just to give you an idea, since the Zika virus was detected, nearly 4,000 babies have been born with this microcephaly here in Brazil. That compares to about 140, 150 on an average year. So people are taking this very seriously. They're fumigating in the Northeast. They are already checking for stagnant water, and they say they will step up all efforts as we get closer to the Games.
And that ends our news segment. Trukai Sports is up next. We'll be back with all the details after the break.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome to Trukai Sports. New Zealand has booked their spot at the FIFA Under-17 Women's World Cup in Jordan 2016 in style after a convincing 8-0 victory over Papua New Guinea in the final of the 2016 OFC Under-17 Women's Championship. Despite coming up against a determined and capable Papua New Guinea outfit, the result was never really in doubt for Gareth Turnbull's New Zealand side, who led 2-0 at half-time before piling on the goals in the second 45 minutes.
The possession advantage was with New Zealand from the opening kickoff until the final whistle, but the PNG line refused to be breached through the opening exchanges. It was forward Hannah Blake, en route to winning the competition Golden Boot, New Zealand came racing out of the gates after half-time, with Blake notching up a double with a 46th minute strike beforehand secured her hat-trick with goals in the 51st and 53rd minutes. Some courageous saves from Casseret stopped the score from blowing out even further as the final half-hour approached, while at the other end, PNG were able to create a couple of good scoring chances off the back of some impressive pace from Belinda Giada. With 2 minutes remaining in regulation time, New Zealand captain Michael Foster was played in behind the defence before finishing well on a tight angle. A short time later, Blake registered her hat-trick in the first minute of additional time to finish the scoring at 8-0. Jaylee Sapies, National EMTV Sports.
To the NSL, and Gigira Laitepo beat Huawei PS 2-1 in the Southern Conference of the Telecom National Soccer League competition, ending round 7 on Sunday.
The match kicked off to a slow start, but gradually picked up midway through the first quarter. Gigira's first goal of the match came from youngster July Elijah, who had been dominant in attack on the right flank. That was soon followed by Guama Taukuro, who added the extra to see Gigira lead all through the first half. In the second half, Huawei PS came in strong, dominating most of the half, with Eriksson Komen controlling their plays. Huawei PS's ongoing attack saw them slot one in behind the keeper from a corner. The game started to get intense as play continued, with a little push and shove from both teams. But the match ended with a string of missed opportunities, leaving the scores at Gigira Laitepo FC 2 and Huawei PS 1. Elijah Levet, National EMTV Sports.
To cricket now, and the PNG Barramundi squad has been announced to tour Australia prior to the Intercontinental Cup match against Ireland. The 14-man squad will be led by Jack Vare and Asad Vala, with the majority of the team made up of Port Moresby-based cricketers Charles Amini, Lega Siaka and Mahurudai, to name a few, while Australian club cricketers Chad Sopa and Hiri Hiri are set to join the team in Townsville. High-performance manager Rarua Dikana has said that batting will be key, with their current batsmen showing good form in previous matches, while their bowlers will also play a vital role against a top-quality batting lineup. The Barras should take some confidence into the fixture against Ireland, having beaten them in the last two encounters in the T20. Trukai Sports continues after the break. We'll be back with all the details.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome back to Trukai Sports. To the NRL now, and South Sydney Rabbitohs have signed former Queensland Origin centre Dane Nielsen on a 2-year deal. The 30-year-old former Storm, Warriors and Dragons player won 2 premierships during his time at Melbourne. Dane brings with him big game experience, which will be invaluable for the young members of the South Rabbitohs backline, according to the coach Michael Maguire. He added that he is prepared to put in the hard work and fight for a spot in their backline, and competition for spots is what every club is looking for. To some tennis news now, and Maria Sharapova takes on long-time arch-enemy Serena Williams in the Australian Open quarter-finals. Sharapova will at least head into the match with her powerful serves.
Runner-up to Williams last year, Sharapova booked a rematch against the American after qualifying for the quarterfinals in her earlier match on Rod Laver Arena yesterday. The 28-year-old now leads the tournament with 52 aces, some distance from Serena, though the American has had to swing her serving arm far less in reaching the quarterfinals. World number 1 Williams wasted little time in beating Russia's Margarita Gasparyan. The 34-year-old defending champion barely got into second gear against Gasparyan and breezed through the second set to seal the match in less than an hour. Elijah Levet, National EMTV Sports.
To some boxing, and Filipino boxer Manny Pacquiao confirms his April fight against Tim Bradley will be his last, as he focuses on helping the people of the Philippines after retirement. The 8-time undisputed world champion Manny Pacquiao will meet at MGM Grand Garden in Las Vegas, the same venue where the two had their two previous encounters.
Pacquiao, 37, and Bradley, 32, will meet at the MGM Grand Garden in Las Vegas. Pacquiao, who has served as a representative in the Philippines Congress.
Sad to say that this is my last fight with the team Bradley. And sad to say that after this, I'm going to retire and hang up my gloves.
Bradley controversially beat Pacquiao when they first met in 2012. But the Filipino gained revenge in their 2014 rematch, scoring a unanimous decision win to regain the WBO welterweight title. April's bout will be Pacquiao's first, since he lost a unanimous decision to unbeaten American Floyd Mayweather Jr. in the so-called fight of the century in Las Vegas 7 months ago.
I decided to have this last fight because I've been in boxing more than 25 years, so it's been a long time.
Bradley says he feels confident about taking on the former 8th division world champion for the 3rd time.
The other two happened, you know, it was what it was, but I think this is completely different now. I think that, you know, the fact that I have Teddy Atlas, the fact that I'm more refined now, I feel like I got better guidance going in this fight. I feel like I'm going to be the total package going in this fight. It just feels like I never really had the other two fights. So this is a whole different Bradley going in, man. Mentally going in, physically. I just can't wait till the day.
He added that Pacquiao's age might have an impact on his fitness. Pacquiao was hampered by a torn rotator cuff against Mayweather before undergoing arthroscopic surgery on his right shoulder just 4 days later.
Maybe, you know, he's older now, you know what I mean? He's older now. I know when I fought him in 2012, and then I thought I fought him in 2014, it was a complete difference. It was way different, way different fighter. Still has, you know, still explosive, still does his, you know, does what he does, but it was a little different.
Southpaw Pacquiao, who has a 57-6-2 record with 38 knockouts, will be taking on the 2-time WBO welterweight champion Bradley, 33-1-1, 13 knockouts. Shane Soroya, National MTV Sports.
And that's Trukai Sports for today. We'll be back with your weather details for the next 24 hours after the break.
Trukai Sports. Trukai Sports.
Taking a look at the weather forecast for the next 24 hours, we start in the southern region. Port Moresby, fine and cloudy with a top temperature of 33 degrees. Daru, fine weather expected with a top temperature of 32 degrees. Top of 32 degrees as well expected in Kerma with fine and cloudy weather. Fine weather in Alota, Milne Bay Province, 32 degrees, and a top of 32 as well in Popondetta, Oro Province, with brief showers expected. To the Momase region, cloudy and showers in Lae and Wa, a top of 32, and a shower or two expected in Madang and Wewak with a top temperature of 32 degrees as well, and a top of 32 for Vanimo with cloudy and showers over the next 24 hours. To the New Guinea Islands region, a shower or two for Lorengau and Kavieng with a top temperature of 32 degrees, mostly fine in Kokopo and Rabaul, a top there of 32, a top of 32 for Kimbe and Buka with a shower or two over the next 24 hours. And in the Highlands region, Mount Hagen, cloudy, 26 degrees, a top temperature there, a top of 27 and cloudy for Goroka and Kundiawa, cloudy weather expected in Mandi and Wabeg, and a top of 25 degrees. To look at the forecast for small ships for the next 24 hours, waters of southern PNG Indonesian border through Torres Strait and Daru to Kiwai Island, to Kerama, to Yule Island, to Hood Point, to Samurai Island, with waters west of Long Island to Medang, Bogia, Wewak, to Aitape, Vanimo and northern PNG Indonesian border, and with waters of New Island to East New Britain and Bougainville, seas 0.5 to 1.5 meters. Waters of eastern and western Milne Bay Islands, with waters of Samurai Island to Cape Vogel to Finchafen, and with waters of Manus and its western group of islands, sea 0.5 to 1.3 meters. And waters of Finschhafen, including Whittier Strait, CSA Islands to Long Island, and with waters of West New Britain, seas 1.5 to 2.5 meters. And a look at the ocean forecast for PNG areas. In the Coral Sea, seas slight to moderate with northwest to southwesterly winds at 10 to 20 knots. Solomon Sea, seas slight with northwest to southwesterly winds at 10 to 15 knots. Bismarck Sea, seas moderate with patches rough with northwesterly winds at 15 to 20 knots and with stronger gusts reaching 34 knots. And the Pacific Ocean, seas slight to moderate with northeast to northwesterly winds at 10 to 20 knots. And before we go, recapping our main stories for tonight. Papua New Guinea not prepared for second Olympic qualifier. Teachers resume duties for the 2016 academic year. And Lae Fire Commander highlights failures of building owners. And that has been the news, sports and weather for tonight, Monday, the 25th of January 2016. On behalf of the EMTV News team, I'm Lae Tulo. Pleasant viewing. Good night.